Hello everyone and welcome to the League of Draven. Today we're going to be talking about Draven and all things related to Draven, because Draven not only won the first Chinese regional in Spiritforged, but also put up some crazy numbers in Top Cut. But first, if you're enjoying the content, then make sure that you like the video and feel free to smash that subscribe button. And if you'd like to support the channel even further, I have a link to my Patreon in the video description. Also, I have channel memberships now. They're just $1 and you get these nice badges next to your name whenever you comment or chat in live streams. Thank you to everybody who supports the channel, even just by watching videos. I really appreciate it. Alright, back to the video. Here is the overall representation of day one for each deck that was brought to the regional. You can see pretty clearly that Draven is the most popular deck at like 36% or a third of the field, which is not really surprising. I think at this point, everyone understands pretty much that Draven is the best deck in the deck to beat in this format. We'll talk a bit later about just how dominant I think this deck is going to be when it comes over into the English meta and what we can do to counter it, but yeah, Draven's just definitely the best deck. He's crazy strong. Every time I played this deck against people, it just feels like I'm cheating. Whether you're playing the normal mid-range build or the wombo combo, throw your entire deck onto the field build, both of them feel very powerful in very different ways. Both of them feel insanely powerful, although I don't really think that many people in China are playing the wombo combo build. I think they tend to favor the more mid-range build, but I think both decks are insanely strong. Next up is Aurelia at like 12% of the field. Also not surprising, this deck is pretty popular over in China. It's been played a bunch and really not doing that bad. It's a pretty good pick for this format. Next is Kaisa at about 8-ish%. I think this deck is overrated and pretty overplayed. It really is not doing that well in terms of conversion and just overall stats. If we look at Riftbound stats for Draven, how well he's doing in China overall, you can see he's converting, exceptionally well, just about everywhere. While Kaisa, on the other hand, looks a lot worse in comparison. Yeah, I think this deck is a bit overrated, and I really don't think it's that great of a pick for next format. I think there's a lot of other decks that I'll talk about later that are doing a lot better and have a lot better potential in this upcoming format. Yeah, I really don't think Kaisa is that strong. It's kind of the same with Victor, who's the next most played deck at about like 5 or 6-ish%. If we take a look at Victor's stats, it looks pretty similar to Kaisa. He's really not doing that great. Also a deck that I don't think is really that amazing. He's definitely not a bad pick. I don't think Kaisa's a bad pick either. I don't think either of these decks are bad. They're just not like high or top tier decks. I think they're like perfectly fine to play middle of the road mid-tier decks. Nothing crazy, nothing outstanding, but nothing bad either. Next we've got Fiora, which I think did decently well. It was in the finals in this event. I think it's definitely not a bad pick for this format. It's pretty good. I wouldn't put it up there with stuff like Aurelia and Draven, of course, but I still think it's not a bad pick. Sivir also kind of in the same boat. She's pretty good, pretty strong, but not as insane as Draven. Yi also kind of the same, maybe around the same power level as something like Fiora and Kaisa. He's really not that amazing, and I think he's just a little bit too fair to be able to really play into this format with how just crazy and exceptionally powerful Draven is. Yeah, the broken stuff that he could do in set 1 just isn't broken enough anymore for him to be really that crazy competitive, I would say. He's got Rune Runner, which is a pretty nice card, but it's slow, it takes time. If you're just playing it in base, that's so slow. You really probably need to play it onto a field backed up with something for it to really do anything meaningful. It's definitely still a strong card, don't get me wrong, but I think it's just not that crazy. And then most of the other stuff here, I just think is not going to be viable. Ornn, Azir, Set, like Lux, Jax, Renata, everything on the next page pretty much I don't think really has a shot. Some decks on here I think are criminally underrated and underplayed right now. Annie is an insane deck. She's extremely strong and not really many people are playing her and over in China. If we look at how well she's doing over here, she's really not being played that much, but I mean, look at her stats. She's is doing pretty well. Certainly nothing as exceptional as Draven, but yeah, she's definitely not bad, definitely strong. I think this deck is being really slept on in China. Yet again, she also has access to the exact same purple and red wombo combo stuff that Draven does. The Ezreal shenanigans with Called Shot and Scrap Heap and all that discarding and drawing a billion card stuff, slamming down a bunch of Rasas and a bunch of Rams. We'll go over deck lists in a bit so you can actually see visually what I'm talking about, but yeah, she has access to the exact same stuff that Draven does. She's not going to draw as many cards as Draven is because her legend doesn't draw, but she gets 2 extra energy every turn, which is also really strong. It lets you play maybe a bit of a faster game plan because you can tap out with all your energy on your turn and still be able to hold up 2 energy, passing over to your opponent's turn, holding up something like a Fight or Flight or a Rebuke or even a counter spell, just being able to do that for free essentially. Yeah, Annie seems really strong. I think we're going to see a lot of her over in the English formats and maybe upcoming in the Chinese regionals that are still yet to fire coming up in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I think she's being super slept on right now, at least for this event. Ezreal as well is another deck I think is being underplayed criminally right now, at least in China it seems. I think he's a very strong deck, up there with Aurelia and Annie towards the top end of the power level of this format. I think he's just crazy good. It seems like there's a couple of different builds that you can do with him. There's basically like a more aggressive combo-ish build that uses Pit Crew to ready itself, making a bunch of gold and just flying all over the place, bouncing between battlefields and stuff, and it's really cool. There's also a more control build that just plays some stuff like Singularity and the new card Downwell to just try and wipe the board and clean up all the nonsense that Wombo Combo, Draven, and other decks are trying to do this format. Yeah, I think he gets to draw a ton of cards. His Legend effect combined with the purple Ezreal package nonsense that he gets to play is exceptionally strong at drawing cards. His win rate and stats and stuff just suck over in China right now because not many people are really playing him, but 2 of the 10 people that played him at this regional managed to sneak their way into Top Cut, so I think he's definitely a very strong deck. Rek'Sai as well is also probably pretty strong. I think whether you're playing the spam the board, go wide build, or the more slow control-ish, just kill everything with kill spells build, I think both of them are pretty good. They both have their upsides and downsides, of course, because they're quite different builds, but I think they're both very strong. Lucian, I also think is very strong. His signature spell is just so strong. It's so crazy. He's probably the fastest, most aggressive deck in the game right now. He just is such a menace. If you are a slow deck that takes a while to get your game plan going, he can really capitalize on that time and put you at a huge points deficit and maybe just win the game before you can try and stabilize. And Misfortune, I still think is probably the best way to play Aurora. Orange-purple is just a really nice color combo to have with Aurora, and the ganking is also really nice to threaten both battlefields with one unit and be able to lead up stuff and take points. Yeah, it's really nice. I think Aurora is going to be less powerful in this upcoming format, but definitely not going to disappear. Having access to Called Shot means you get to have your Aurora more often, and sometimes that is just going to be the difference between you winning and losing more games. If sticking Aurora on the board means you win, then you're just going to win more often. And yeah, the rest of the decks that were played here in very small quantities, I just don't think are really that relevant this format. All right, let's talk about Top Cut, because yeah, that's a lot of Draven, huh? That's like almost 2/3 of Top Cut, which is tier 0 performance. Most people would consider this as tier 0. Now, I don't think he is actually a tier 0 deck. I could end up being wrong in that, of course, but when he comes over into the English format, I really think he's not going to do this crazy. I still think he's going to be the best deck. I think he's probably going to take up, if I had to guess, like a third to a half of the Top Cut spots at the Vegas regional. If I had to guess, that's what I would guess. But who knows? Everyone and their mom might just play Draven and he'll put up even crazier numbers than this. We really can't say. But yeah, I think if people actually start playing better counters to him, like I mentioned Annie and Ezreal, and maybe there's some other stuff hidden here that's pretty good at countering Draven, and people stop trying to make Kaisa and Victor work, then I think this 2/3 of Top Cut number is going to go down a bit. I think as far as results for the very first regional of this format, format goes, this makes sense, kinda. Everyone just saw Draven was going to be the best and decided to play him and test him, and didn't really have time to test other stuff or didn't really want to risk bringing something else. I would imagine as the format ages and people test more and figure out more stuff, the other decks that I mentioned are going to rise up in popularity, like Annie and Ezreal and other stuff as well. I think at least that's what I would expect to happen. I don't think he is tier 0, although he is kind of a little bit stronger at least than everything else in the format. I don't think he's so strong that he's the only deck worth playing, and I don't think that we're going to see numbers like this or like this happen in this format when it comes to English. I think he's going to sit comfortably in that tier 1 area. I think there's a good chance that he's like the only deck in tier 1. Maybe there's some other stuff that rises up to rival his performance, but I think it's a safe assumption that his power level will still prove to be higher a bit than everything else in the format, but he won't be so powerful that he's like the only deck worth playing, aside from like niche counters that are built to target specifically him. To put that in visual terms, I think a situation like this here is probably more or less what's going to happen. I also wouldn't be entirely surprised if something like this ends up happening and people figure out that actually Draven isn't that crazy overpowered and there's a bunch of other decks that are pretty close to his power level. But yeah, bottom line, I don't really think a scenario like this is gonna happen. I could be wrong, and it could happen, of course, but I really don't think it's going to. Going over deck lists next, this is the winners list. Going over their battlefields, they're playing Reavers as their blind game 1 pick, Targon's going first, and Obelisk going second, so you can play Draven as a 4-drop immediately turn 1, and you're also free to mulligan away any 2-drops in your hand that you don't need, because now your turn 1 play is Draven, and you already have guaranteed access to it. We're playing 8 2-drops, which seems like a comfortable number. You can also do 9 if you want. Overzealous Fan is an insane card, and Treasure Hunter is also very strong, especially with Reavers. Same with Kaisa, they're playing just 2 of that. That seems like a good number to me. 3 might be a little bit of overkill in some matchups. I also really like 3 Hopeful and 3 Darius. I think those are very strong cards that you basically always want to see, and you're really not that sad seeing multiples of them. 2 Bryn here is also very strong in the mirror match and against purple in general, like Aurelia and stuff. It basically just says you can't be interacted with that turn and you can just win any combats that you want to. 1 Forerunner and 1 Mind Splitter as just board development pieces. Mind Splitter to take crucial cards from your opponent seems pretty good, and Forerunner is just good stats for its cost. 2 Spinning Axe and 3 Edge of Night just for having your units survive against combat tricks and damage spells and stuff and just being able to win combat. I'm not really sold on Edge of Night. I really like it as a 1-of, but I'm not sure 3 copies is the way to go. Spinning Axe, I really like 3 of. That card is just very strong. Just 1 Cleave. If you're expecting to see a lot of control, maybe you can consider only 1 Cleave, but I really like this card against basically everything else. 3 Stack Deck I really like. I think that card is just so crazy. Falling Star is really nice in mirrors. It's also really nice, especially against the Wombo combo builds of Draven. Base sniping in this game is just very strong, and if you can kill an Ezreal and something else maybe with this, that's really strong. Also just killing like a Rasa is really nice. Sniping their Draven 4-drop in base before it can do anything is also good. Fight or Flight is a bit self-explanatory. Same as Rebuke, they're just insane purple cards, especially in Draven. Ride the Wind, also Switcheroo, very good cards. Yeah, just having a very versatile suite of combat tricks is exceptionally frustrating to try and play against, because there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things that they can do at reaction speed that you just have to guess what they're gonna try and do. And these cards all do very different things, like Spinning Axe +3 could potentially just win the combat and blow you out. Fight or Flight just pushes you. Ride the Wind goes somewhere else, so you have to play around that too. Yeah, this all here just makes it very difficult to play against Draven. I do really like cards like Mind Splitter and Sabotage in this format, just to look at your opponent's hand and pick the thing that you can't really beat. Yeah, I think Perfect Hand Knowledge of this format is exceptionally strong when you're trying to attack into Draven's stuff, especially in the mirror match. Like, you just take the thing that could win combat for them, and now they can't win. So not only do you get to win a combat, but you get to draw because you're playing Draven. That seems so powerful. Yeah, in the sideboard here, more combat tricks against the odds. Longsword, another Ride the Wind to go a bit faster. Another Kaisa is nice against control. control. Another Bryn here is nice against Aurelia and the mirror and stuff. Ferris also good against control, and Mind Splitter is good against most things, I'd say. Yeah, very strong deck, very strong list. Looks very difficult to play against overall, unless you're also playing Draven. Yeah, I think this deck is just crazy. And here is the second place list. It's Fiora. I haven't really played with this deck, but I've played against it a few times. It's definitely not a bad deck, but I don't think it's that insane. Playing Monastery, Sunken Temple, Dreaming Tree. I don't really know what order you play these in, to be honest. It probably depends on matchup, I would assume. For their chosen champ, they're playing one of the 4-drop Fiora. At least I think this is their chosen champ, because it's separated out into 2 parts here. Also playing a yellow Fiora. I'm not sure which is the chosen champ, but I'm assuming it's the 4-drop because it's being singled out here. But yeah, you're at least playing the other one, the 3-drop, so that you can pivot into it depending on probably if you're going first or second. It's matchups. Playing 6 2-drops, which is a little light, but you do have other stuff to do on turn 1. You've got Doran's Blade, you've got Warmogs. Playing 2 First Mate to accelerate stuff is pretty nice. I really like this card. 3 Lucian is nice. He's a weapon master. He's just a good card in general, especially going second. The reset is amazing in the stack because he triggers your legend immediately and then triggers it again next turn. You've got BF Sword, which makes pretty much anything in your deck mighty. 2 Punch First. I really like 3 in basically every orange deck. Perhaps it's a bit overkill, but yeah, Punch First is just such a crazy card. Sabotage, 3 Challenge to kill stuff because you're probably going to be bigger than their stuff is in most matchups. Set gets to 8. If he has some equipment on him, he gets even bigger, which is pretty nice. Hidden Blade, just a staple yellow card. Your champion spell, which is an insane spell. 2 energy counter spell. Also it buffs one of your units. Yeah, just a crazy card. A salvage main decked and 2 Call to Glory. You do have Hit Rookie and Warmogs to get buffs onto stuff. You can also just play it as a 3 energy pump spell. In the sideboard, more Sabotage. Honestly, a great card in most matchups this format. Unyielding Spirit for control and just damage spell heavy decks in general. Cannon Barrage can do a bunch of damage stuff if people are stacking a bunch of units on a field. Facebreaker is a nice tempo play. You just set your opponent back and attack, and more salvage to kill more gear, which there is quite a bit of in this format. Third place, we've got another Draven, which looks like a pretty standard list. I won't really go over it that much, but they're opting to main 2 Against the Odds, some extra copies of Draven, 3 Kaisa. Yeah, not really a crazy build, just good cards. Their battlefields are a little bit different there. They're playing Star Tipped, assuming we're going first, and Paper Tree, which is definitely interesting. Looks like they want to ramp a little bit in this list. I still think Reavers and Targons are the best play here, just because Draven gets so much insane value out of Reavers. It's kind of hard not to stick that card in the deck, and Targon's also going first is just absolutely bonkers with how many 2-drop stuff you're playing. Pretty much all of your combat tricks are 2. So if you have Targons, they're just free. Sideboard is mostly standard stuff you'd expect, but there's 2 Siren in here, which is definitely interesting. Some extra movement. Not really sure how this works out or what it's for, but it's definitely interesting. For 4th place, we've got an Aurelia playing Obelisk. This time it is for going first, and I'll explain why in a bit. Sunken Temple and Dreaming Tree. We've got only 5 2-drop units, but we do have other stuff to do on 2, like Guardian Angel and Siren. Some Stellacorn to draw some cards, some Draven to get us more points. A ton of combat tricks. Defiant Dance, On Guard, Discipline, Fight or Flight, Flash I guess counts, Rebuke, Ride the Wind as well. Lots of counter spells, 3 Not So Fast to defy, 2 Charm for removal, and some utility one-ofs like Boots, Siren. In the sideboard, they've got another Defy, another Flash, good against damage spell heavy decks. Defy, pretty good in the mirror. Sneaky deckhand, this is for going first with Obelisk. You just stick it down turn 1, and your opponent really can't punish that pretty often. Adaptatron for killing some gear, and the Yasuo for some cheeky points grabbing with like Ride the Wind and stuff. Yeah, Aurelia seems very strong. Definitely a very different deck kinda than what we're seeing. It's sort of like a Voltron deck. You just play Green Aurelia and stick a bunch of equipment and spells on her. You do have other plays you can make, of course, but that kind of is the core game plan of this deck. I think this is the 5th place list. This is Annie playing Obelisk, Star Tip, and Dreaming Tree. You've got 8 2-drop units in the deck, 3 deckhand, some Draven. This looks pretty similar to a list that people would be playing in set 1, except there's a couple new cards in here, the Dravens, the Forerunners, and that's pretty much it. Switcheroo, playing some Timelines in here to disrupt the opponent's hand, which is really nice against stuff like the Wombo Combo Draven deck and Ezreal that build big hands and want to keep certain stuff in their hand. Sideboard, we've got Longsword, another Draven, some Hopefuls, a Darius, and 3 Mind Splitter, which is interesting. I'm kind of surprised to see no copies of Brynn here in this deck. I think that card's pretty strong, but Mind Splitter kind of fills a similar role, just take interaction away from your opponent. Yeah, looks like a pretty normal any list, just with some of the new cards and some format specific text like timelines. I think this deck is pretty strong. It looks pretty good. In 6th place, we've got another Draven. This is also a standard looking Draven list, not the Wombo Combo build. Same battlefields as before. We've seen running 9 2-drops, 3 Kaisas, some Hopeful, and some Darius, a Vex. Vex I think is pretty strong, especially in the mirror. If you can slap it on a battlefield, that's pretty nice. We're in here for closing out games and stuff. Forerunner, nice development piece for holding fields. Axe, Blood Rush, a bunch of the other stuff that we've already seen. Piercing Light is nice, especially in the mirror. The only thing they can really do to save stuff is have a spinning axe. Yeah, I think this card's pretty strong. It might get phased out in favor of playing Falling Star, just because that is a little bit better, I think, against the Wombo Combo stuff and against control decks like Ezreal, but we'll have to see. Sideboard and Edge of Night. Fading Memories is interesting. I really don't think this card's that crazy. Anything I would want to kill with Fading Memories, I think I would just want Rebuke against, but they're already maxed out on 3 of that, so maybe they want more removal. Extra Darius, Thermo Beams for removing gear against gear heavy decks. This can basically just win the game when you play it. And 2 more Forerunners, primarily against control. 7th place, oh look, it's another Draven, and it's pretty similar to everything else we've seen. Playing Zon Warrens as their 3rd field is pretty interesting. Doesn't look like they're playing any scrap heaps to combo with it. 9 2-drops, a couple Rengar, which is interesting. We don't really see that card this often, but it's still not a bad card. Definitely not. It's pretty good. Painting 2 Longsword, a Falling Star, some other pretty standard stuff in here. Yep, Draven, good deck. In the sideboard, we've got another Falling Star. It's pretty good against a bunch of decks of this format. Switcheroo is a nice combat trick, especially if you set it in with Vex. We're in here again for closing out games and stuff. Thermo Beam for gear, and Last Rites maybe against control, so you can keep bringing back units after they kill them. And our last top 8 list is another Aurelia, which kind of looks pretty similar to the list that we've already seen. Some 2-drops, 2 Stellacorn, 2 Draven, Guardian Angels, lots of combat tricks and counter spells and shenanigans. Not playing any Siren in the main deck in this list. Nothing really too spicy in the main deck. Inside we've got Charm, Defy, Last Rites, Adaptron, Stellacorn, Mordra, I guess, Vex. I think you guys know what these cards are for at this point. And yeah, there wasn't a Wombo Combo build of Draven in top 8, but if you want to play the deck, this is what I'm currently playing. Yeah, this deck is pretty crazy. If you ask me, when I play it, I feel like I'm just cheating and not really playing Riftbound anymore. You just play a 2-drop and then you play Draven, and then next turn you can start going wild if you have like Ezreal and stuff. Yeah, it's overall just a deck that can be really silly sometimes. Just vomit 3 Rosas onto the board at once is really dumb. It's a blast to play. Playing against it is probably gonna give you an aneurysm because they can just super high roll sometimes and vomit 3 Rasa onto the board. And yeah, unless you have a specific answer in hand for that, you probably just lose. Alright, well, that's the first regional for Spiritforged. Let's hope things get better when they come over here in the English release. I'm expecting them to get better. I don't think Draven's gonna be as dominant as this when he comes over, but who knows? I could be surprised. Alright, well, that's about all we have to talk about today. So, hope you guys are excited to join the League of Draven.